When and why did that emerge? This central bank, the Fed, this corruption, crony inflation. Who is behind it? Why? What is happening?
The heart of man. I think Ron Paul's definition is excellent here on money. He says, money is the most sought after monopolistic power of man. You know, as Lord Acton said, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. I don't think there's any closer implementation to absolute power in the world than to have a money printer, because you're actually counterfeiting tokenized human labor energy. You're counterfeiting it, right? You are producing it. You're producing something for free that other people have to work to obtain. I can't think of a more asymmetrical, advantageous position to be in, right? So this is why it is the most sought after monopolistic power of man. Every country in the world, every gang in the world, everyone wants to fight over the power to issue and control their own currency. And it's, you know, I'm not here to cast aspersions on any individual group or enterprise, because ultimately it is this temptation that lives in the human heart. And so the Bitcoiner perspective on this is something like, there's a saying that the line between good and evil cuts down the heart of every man. I think the Bitcoiner perspective is that material incentives hold a very strong influence on the oscillation of that line between good and evil. And Bitcoin, by simply being money that cannot be printed, we could get into why and all the things, but if you just take it at face value for a second, money that nobody can print, right? It's the only fixed supply asset we've ever had. It just removes the option for that game and that exploitation to even occur. You can't monopolize it, right? The most sought after monopolistic power of man in Bitcoin, it cannot be monopolized.
It's uncorruptible.
Exactly. It's incorruptible. And specifically the meaning of corruption, the uneven application of rules, right? We would say something like the laws of physics are not corruptible because they evenly apply to all of us. I can't change gravity. I'm pretty sure you can't.
Not yet.
I don't think we can change the speed of light. So we just adhere, right? We comply, basically, and we work out and we live, and eventually gravity wins and we die, right? That's kind of the game that we're in. But it's a fair game, at least, in that we know that the rules are fixed, they're evenly applied, they're not going to change.
We're all playing in the same boat.
You could imagine how horrible the world would be if the laws of physics could be manipulated by man. Right. And how much human effort and war and strategy and all of the things that would go into trying to control the laws of physics. Yeah. Because if you could control the laws of physics, you could actually win every game in perpetuity forever. Right? So what we've been seeking throughout human history and this sought after monopolistic power of man is something tantamount to that. And the miracle of Bitcoin is that it has imported the integrity of the laws of physics into the socioeconomic domain. We actually have fixed rules that are evenly applied to all people. There's a principle at the bottom of Western civilization called equality in the eyes of the law. Well, that's an ideal, right? We've sort of approximated it. I would say our best approximation has been the U.S. Constitution and this experiment we've built on top of it. However, we've seen the censorship and the lawfare and all the nonsense, especially in the post-pandemic world, where corruption has festered once again, right? Bitcoin is a realization of that ideal, I think in a permanent way, where we all are actually equal in the eyes of Bitcoin no matter what. It's perfectly impartial to human affairs. And this is what makes it so mind-bending in a way. It's a new form of social institution that forces us to comply with its laws rather than our laws regulate and comply with it. So and this is where you see countries and businesses and individuals and all of us philosophically wrestling with this gargantuan thing that we call Bitcoin. And as far as like a historical parallel, I wrote an essay called The Number Zero in Bitcoin, and I think that's the best comparison you could possibly make. We could talk about that if you like, but I promised we were going to keep it surface level today, but I don't seem to be doing a good job of that right now. But I hope this is useful.
It's very useful. And I want to, somewhat walk in both worlds of the very tangible, I love that fix the money, fix the world philosophy. And also this spiritual conundrum. When you were saying that about, it reminded me of my dad growing up. He's like, oh yeah, when we get a money tree, we could do all these things you want to do. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. These people have the money tree.
Yes.
And
that's exactly right.
They have the money
Mom
tree.
said the same thing.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, and they're not using it for good because of the absolute power corrupts absolutely, and also that money is the root of all evil, etc. And it can exacerbate those things. You've obviously done a lot of thinking about this. I'm fascinated as money as a energy, right? Currency. Like, how does Bitcoin play into this? Money as energy, and is it possible to save the world from this deep rooted corruption, censorship, nefarious intent, and bad actors?
Well, in many ways, it's like one of the defining questions in the arc of human history, right? It's like, if this is the most sought after monopolistic power of man, you could trace a lot of the twists and turns of human history around the axis and movements of money and how it's changed forms, and even the current geopolitical layout of the world is largely based on who has the gold, right? The old saying, he who has the gold makes the rules. There's also the Rothschild quote that, give me the power to issue a nation's currency and I care not who makes its laws. Right? So this is, again, the primary law, basically, of human collaboration. And so, yeah, in the United States, we have the most gold on paper. We haven't audited Fort Knox in over 50 years. So, there's no verification on that. We just trust whoever put the gold in there. It's still in there. Who knows what's going on there. But that gives us this position of geopolitical dominance, right? We're called the global superpower, largely based on how much gold we hold relative to other nations. And there is also, that's the same reason why countries like China and Russia have been large accumulators of gold for the past 10 years. I think China has been the number one producer and importer of gold for years running.
Now, when you say producer of gold, doesn't all gold have to be mined?
Yes.
Right.
So yes, inside of the border of China, they are producing it, actively mining it, extracting it, refining it, stockpiling it. Wow. They're also buying it from world markets. And so this is like, don't trust what they say, trust what they do. All central banks in the world are simultaneously engaging in currency counterfeiting, which is often euphemistically called quantitative easing or increasing the debt ceiling or whatever. They always put a new word around it, but at the end of the day, it's money printing. All the central banks are printing specifically currency. It's not actual money, if we consider that gold is the actual energy. They're not really printing the money, they're printing the representation.
The monopoly notes that represent it.
The map, not the territory. But if people believe the map, then it works. They can use it to steal people's energy, basically. If people keep working for the thing that you're printing, well, then people will expend their labor for something that you don't have to expend labor for. So it's, again, that asymmetry in the game. And so, yeah, China, Russia, they've been stockpiling gold for a long time. So you have to trust what they're doing, which is they themselves are holding gold while they are inflating the currency, printing the currency, dumping the cost of that onto anyone that's foolish enough to hold it, basically. Right. And at the bottom of that is people that are poor, right? Yeah. People that are living on fixed incomes, retirees, pensioners, people that need that dollar to work next week. This is the bottom of that pyramid that's getting dumped on through central banking. So when we say the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, I would argue that this is the core determinant of that dynamic. It's not to say that rich won't maybe continue to increase their wealth relative to the poor, even in a free market environment. But at least in that environment, you get the tide that rises all ships, right? That we're increasing standards of living and human productivity per capita. So on a per capita basis, and we've seen this since the Industrial Revolution, GDP per capita has gone up despite all of this theft and reallocation and war and all of these other things that have contravene the market dynamic that gives us so much prosperity, basically. So Bitcoin is, it's the map that does not deviate from the territory, right? It's actual tokenized human labor energy in a network that a central bank cannot monopolize, corrupt, distort, stockpile, manipulate. Like, you can stockpile, all you can do is accumulate it, basically. So that's the game everyone is now forced into playing. It's like, just to accumulate this thing.
Right.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.